Hello, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. I'm going to give people one more second to join in, and then we will go ahead and get started. Okay, it is 12:01, so let's go ahead and jump in. Can you all hear me? Just give me like a thumbs up or something in the chat just to make sure I'm not on mute or presenting to nobody.
Where is it?
Make sure my audio is on.
Mm.
Okay, I'm gonna take that as a yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Perfect. I see thumbs ups now. Awesome. All right, let's do it. So thanks for being here. My name is Alexa Ferguson. I am a realtor with Good Neighbor Realty, also an investor myself. Today we're going to be talking about how to live for free with real estate investing. So thanks for being here, and let's jump in. Okay, so when we talk about living for free, the method that we're going to be talking about today is house hacking, which some of you may be familiar with, some of you may not be, but essentially what that is renting out a portion of your primary residence. And so there's sort of a scale of comfort levels when it comes to renting out part of your primary residence. And so on the lower end of that comfort scale, in my opinion, at least, I would say is renting out bedrooms in your house. So you have roommates, shared spaces. Getting a little bit more comfortable is maybe renting your basement. They have a totally separate space. That's what we've done. And then I guess a luxury house hack, as some call it, would be maybe renting out a separate ADU, which is like a separate carriage home, like maybe above your garage or something like that. So it's like a completely separate building. But it all is really renting out a portion of where you live. And I should have said this at the beginning too, but for questions, it's a lot to manage the chat and present at the same time. So if you have questions, you feel free to throw them in the chat and then I will address those all at the end. Okay. Benefits of house hacking. So you can acquire a property for very little down. So because this is a primary residence, you can get into the property for as little as 0 to 5% down, usually, depending on what loan products you qualify for. And then you have a reduced or eliminated living expense. So there's somebody renting out a portion of your house, and so you're not paying your full monthly payment. There's people helping you do that. And then you're getting your loan paid down by other people. So one of the best benefits of owning real estate in general at all is building equity over time, and to have other people paying down your loan to build your equity for you is really a powerful thing in developing generational wealth. So I know that the topic of this webinar was how to live for free through real estate investing. I think a lot are probably wondering, is that possible? Especially in today's interest rate environment, pricing environment. And I would say it is possible depending on your strategy. So for example, if you are okay with the rent by the room strategy, say you get a 5-bedroom house and you rent out 4 of your bedrooms to long-term tenants and all of them are paying you $900 per room. And say your monthly payment is like $3,500, 9 times 4 is 36. So you would be in the green, you'd be living for free, you'd be cash flowing on an investment like that. If you wanted to go the route of renting out your basement as a short-term rental, that's what we've done. Then I would say you can live for free for maybe like the peak months of the year, which in the Denver metro area is the like summer months. And so maybe you're living for free in those months, and maybe you're close to breaking even in the winter months or something like that. So, and that's in today's interest rate environment. I would say as rates go down, it becomes possible to live for free for more months out of the year, but the great thing about house hacking is no matter what, it's a win. It's saving you money. It's reducing one of your biggest expenses in life. If I make $1 from a tenant living downstairs or in another room, I'm paying less than I would have if I didn't have them there. So it really is a very safe way to get into real estate investing. And I think it's like one of the best ways for people to start out. Especially when it comes to scaling, like if you don't have a ton of capital to your name, getting into a house for 0 to 5% down, and you can do that every year because the primary residence requirement is you just have to live there for about a year. And then you can move out and do whatever you want with the property, rent the whole thing, sell it, whatever. You can buy a house every year for 0 to 5% down. And in five years, you have 5 houses and you didn't have to put 20% down on any of them. So, yeah, lots of benefits when it comes to house hacking. I think one of the safest and beginner-friendly ways to get into it. Okay, so to illustrate, I guess, like how this works and the power of house hacking, I'm actually just going to share my investing story with you guys. And so I call it my path to mostly passive income because it's, we'd love for it to be completely passive, right? But that's just not the case. And especially going the route of investing with short-term rentals, we have it to the point now where we have systems dialed. It takes a couple hours out of our week every week. But I wouldn't call it 100% passive. So the strategy, we term it serial house hacking with short-term rentals just because it's something that we have intentionally done repetitively. And so kind of like I was just explaining, the process is purchase a property as a primary residence for, I have 5% down here, but it can be 0 to 5% depending on products you qualify for. For our first one, it was 3.5% down, and we've done 5 since then. There's other products that are 0% down with some caveats. But ultimately for a little down, live in the property for a year while renting the basement to offset the mortgage, and then move out after a year, rent out the entire house, and then do it again. And so this is the strategy that like we've adopted and has been super powerful. So house number 1, this house is in North Denver. It is like in the like 72nd and Pecos area if you're local, but we purchased this property when homes were a little bit cheaper, rates were a little bit better. It was like 380 for 3% interest rate, which was awesome. But this was the first house we ever bought. We had very little like money to our name. We thought, let's just get into it. So we started renting the basement. And you can see from the photo, like it is really bare bones. I had not been too awakened to the magic of a designer at this point. Lots of Facebook Marketplace and Amazon furniture going on. So nothing special, but you can see our numbers, monthly revenue on the left side. These are gross numbers. So for the first year of renting our basement, that generated $26,000. And then the months that are highlighted in green are the months that we lived either for free or made money. And so with this house, we lived for free and made money 6 months out of the year. And then the other months are not super far off, like where our monthly payment was. So they were still really mitigating our monthly payment. So we paid about $2,500 to live in our house in 2021 instead of $35,000, which would have been paying the full mortgage payment over the course of the year. So it's really saved us a ton of money and like wiped out our biggest living expense, which was pretty powerful for us, especially at that time. Okay, so then we moved out, we rented the whole house. You can see we like understood design and photos a little bit better by this point. And so this house is a 4-bed, 2-bath. I should have mentioned that 4-bed, 2-bath. And it sleeps 8 people right now. And it's really kind of nothing special, but we got good design, good photos. And this is what it was making. You can see if you look at the monthly numbers, and I know I'm kind of like speeding through these numbers, but I'll send you guys the presentation after as well, so you can look through it. But you'll see that it really does peak in like June, July, August is really peak months. It's sort of like a bell curve for Airbnb revenue in the Denver area, peaking in the summer. So this house in 2022, it grossed $56,000. Our annual expenses for this house are around 35,000. And so the cash flow on this one's about $20,000 a year, which is definitely a win for us. Future strategy and projections on this one. So top properties in this area, according to AirDNA and just like our client data that we have of clients who have properties in this area, they do about $80,000 a year. Ours is doing 56. So it's a very mid-level performing property. And I can go into the reasons for that, but essentially it's things we could do to increase our revenue would be to increase our occupancy. Sleeping only 8 is just kind of okay. Once you sleep 10 people plus, you can really start to charge like a higher tier of a nightly rate. Also, we have no amenities. So we're finally practicing what I preach a little bit with this house, and we have a hot tub on the way. So with the addition of the hot tub, I think we could bump up our revenue to like 65 or 70K, just kind of being conservative. And then our cash flow would jump up to around 34,000 a year, which would be amazing. So, yeah, want to take a realistic view of that. And then also, keep an eye on what is the competition doing? What are top properties in this area earning, and what do those properties look like? So all the top performers in this area, I know Sleep 10 Plus have amenities like game rooms and hot tubs and that sort of thing. And if I don't do those things, I'm going to be in that mediocre middle, we call it. So still making money on it, but room to improve, which I think is a good thing to always have your eye on. Okay, then we moved out of this house and we moved house number 1, moved into house number 2. And we started renting our basement again. So again, I can't get away from these gray couches from American Furniture Warehouse. They're just kind of, the design is very basic. I did this one myself again. But this one, it grossed 36,000 over the year, and we lived for free and made money 5 months out of the year. So that's a win for us. And then we paid about $4,400 to live in that house in 2022 instead of like $50,000, which would have been the full mortgage for the whole year. So saving a ton of money again. Okay, then we moved out of this house and we actually rented, this is also a 4-bed, 2-bath house. We kept the basement unit running as it was. And then we made the upstairs unit, which is also a 2-bed, 1-bath, its own Airbnb. So there's 2 Airbnbs stacked on top of each other. This is not allowed everywhere, but this is in unincorporated Denver. It's Adams County, and so it is allowed there. So we started renting the house as 2 Airbnb units, and so this is combined revenue. And so this house actually grossed like $85,000 over the first year that it was up and running. So it starts in May because that's when we launched the upstairs unit in conjunction with the downstairs. I was very pleasantly surprised by this number. That upstairs unit just really does well. I think there's obviously it's better, it's more attractive to not be a basement, and then these smaller units just very consistently book out. And we've been able to, I think just with like okay design and good photography, it still has no amenities, but we've been able to like max out our nightly rate on this little unit. So it grossed $85,000. Our annual expenses for this property are around $50,000. And so we're cash flowing like $35,000 on this house, which is really fantastic for us. Okay. House number 3, last one. So then we moved out of that house, rented both those units, and then we moved into our 3rd house where we live now. This one's like just right off Tennyson Street, a better area. This is Denver County, somewhere we wanted to stay a little bit longer. And this is our first year revenue for this house hack. You'll see the other ones we're doing closer to like 35,000. This is in a better area, and so it's doing closer to like 45,000. And so this is a more expensive house. We have a higher monthly payment. So we paid about $28,000 to live in our house in the first year instead of $72,000. So we're still like paying to live in this house. We're not living for free in this house if you're solely looking at this house alone and how much the basement revenue is generating, but we're still saving a ton of money. And if you look at all of the three houses in conjunction together, if you'll remember, so look, we paid $28,000 to live in this house this year, but our other two homes are making $35,000 and $20,000. And so that covers that really nicely. And so if you look at all three houses as a whole, they're covering themselves. If you look at it on an annual basis, we are living for free and we're making money and we're living in an ideal area for us. And then all three homes we're building equity through loan pay down and appreciation, and then they're cash flowing, and we live in a place that we really want to live. So I think it's an important thing to look at your portfolio on the whole. And I know some clients of mine will get stuck on, oh, but this house, I'm in the red every month. But it's like, okay, if you look at your other homes in conjunction with that one, how are you looking then? So I think it's good to have a holistic view of your portfolio as you grow. Okay, future strategy and projections for this one. This one is in Denver County, which if you guys are familiar, they're much stricter when it comes to Airbnb. So their rule is that it has to be your primary residence in order to Airbnb any part of it. And so we're doing that now. Denver's pretty strict, and so we definitely play by the rules here. And so what's interesting though is that the rule is that the house has to be someone's primary residence. And so if we had a tenant in here up in the upstairs unit full time and they hold the short-term rental license, we can keep running our basement as an Airbnb, and that's totally legal in Denver's eyes. They would just need our authorization, which we would give. So we don't really plan to move out anytime soon, but if we did, we could keep renting our basement, which generates an average of like $4,100 a month. We could rent the upstairs unit we live in now for about like $3,000 to long-term tenants. So that's an average of about $7,100 that we're bringing in gross every month. So that's like $85,000 a year. And then our expenses are $72,000 for this house roughly. And so we're still cash flowing like $13,000 a year. So it's not as big of cash flow as the other properties, but this property is in a much better area, strong rental demand, appreciation is much stronger. So if you're someone who really feels good about purchasing in like Class A neighborhoods where it just makes sense to you, is where people want to be, it's still possible. And then just kind of what I was saying before, lumping all the properties together, this is a snapshot of like the peak like month of the year. There's June and July that are the peak months of the year. And so, like I was saying, there are months that you can definitely live, whereas maybe in the winter, we're more so breaking even. But in June of 2023, looking at it on the whole, between the three properties, we brought in about 18,000. Our expenses are about 11,000. And so we netted about $6,500 in 1 month across these three properties while living for free. So, and then annually, our projections would be that across the three properties, we should be bringing in about $200,000 in gross revenue. Our expenses across the three properties are about $140K. So we should be netting about $60,000 a year across three properties. And so this is just three properties that we just were willing to move once a year for a couple years. And we acquired them for really low down. And now we have this $60,000 of cash flow that we have put in place that will only get better over time as we pay off our loans. I'll touch really quickly on legislation because I kind of spoke about it already, but super important for you to know with whatever rental strategy you want to do, have somebody in your corner, investor-friendly realtor, whatever it is, who understands legislation and can make sure you don't get into a pickle where you're like, oh shoot, I just bought this house. I had the plans to rent it this way, and I just found out it's not allowed. What do I do? So, the first two properties I showed you are in Adams County. It's unincorporated Denver. It's essentially a lawless land at this point. They have said, we don't want to overregulate these issues. And so they pretty much just don't have any regulation for or against short-term rentals at this point. So I don't see them changing that anytime soon in any sort of significant way. I could see them maybe bringing in like a licensing requirement just to make sure your property's up to code and safe and whatever it is, but feel pretty good about our properties there. And then Denver, I mentioned, there's a primary residence requirement. You must obtain a license, but you can have a tenant hold the license if you're not living there. So, but yeah, play by Denver's rules, and then they're pretty easy to work with. So key takeaways, couple tips to set up passive income streams through house hacking and short-term rentals. So number one, understand short-term rental legislation as it relates to future goals. And like I was saying, this applies to whatever rental strategy you're trying to do. Like if you want to rent by the room, there's limitations on how many unrelated parties can live under the same roof. So all things to be aware of. I think Denver just changed the number on that, but there's still, a rule in place to be aware of. But so that's one thing. Make sure you can do what you want to do. Determine ease of home separation and shared living spaces. So for us, we rent the basement, we're cool with that. So we always look for a separate entrance down to the basement. I don't want to share spaces with you. I don't want to see you in my kitchen. The only spot that we might run into them is the backyard. Also, good to keep in mind things like, where's the laundry? Where is the thermostat? How can those be accessed when you have guests? So things to keep in mind when you're looking for a home to do this. Analyze potential income. If it's short-term rental, we use AirDNA, and then also like the numbers I was just showing you from actual clients of ours or myself who have rentals in the area, and get a sense for what you can actually rent your unit for. If you're looking for long-term rental, things like Zillow, People's Actual Data are great tools. If you're looking for midterm rental, Furnish Finder is a good tool. Overestimate setup costs if you're going to be furnishing the property for a midterm or a short-term rental. Just overestimate that and how long it's going to take you. It's the worst part unless you hire a designer and then they do everything for you if you're willing to pay for one. And that's really where the magic is at. And then have an exit strategy. So if you're doing short-term rental, consider long and midterm income. If Adams County does a 180 and shuts down short-term rentals, I would probably switch my properties to midterm rentals because they're already furnished. And so that's just 30-day plus rentals that are furnished. They make a little bit more than long-term rentals do. So it's good to just think of those scenarios up front, even if they're unlikely. And then I wanted to just end with talking about your why a little bit. I think it's not always super glamorous, this real estate investing game. And so I think having a strong why is important to come back to when things are a little bit tough, or your guests or tenants are being crazy, or, a pipe bursts and floods the basement or whatever, things happen. And so consider for yourself, what is your why? Some ideas are to diversify your income streams, build generational wealth, spend more time traveling, spend more time with family and friends. I think for us, it's just been the gift of optionality that we've been able to achieve through this. We're having a baby in February, and I can take a couple of months off knowing that I have the cushion of my rental properties making money for us and covering our living expenses. As a realtor, if you don't work, you don't make money. So it's nice to have these properties as a cushion that, a lot of people don't have that option. So yeah, just something to consider for yourself. So that is all that I have for you guys today. Here's my information. This QR code links to my calendar if you want to set up a call. My phone number is there too, and then also my email. If you want to set up a time to get together, I can look over like an existing property you have, or maybe one that you want to get into, and do a one-on-one consultation for what that could look like for you. So you can shoot me an email. My email's right there, and just make the subject heading house hacking, and then I'll know that that's what you're looking to do. A little bit more about our brokerage, and I promise I'll get into any questions in the chat after this. So we focus on the niche of investors and specifically right now in short-term rentals, just because it's the highest cash flowing rental strategy. And so we give our clients access to AirDNA, we give you access to vendor lists for cleaners and handymen and the whole thing. We have monthly networking events, legislation guides, so you know where you can buy, automation guides, property analysis. So if you're looking to ever purchase a property, you have a good sense of the numbers before ever pulling the trigger on anything. And then lastly, this is our social channels. My personal like realtor account is right there in the middle. I try so hard to post and I'm so bad at it. So any follows you can give me will be encouraging. And then there's the good neighbor accounts there as well. Okay, let me take a look in this chat, see if there's any questions. Oh no, Hawaii does not allow Airbnb. I heard that. I think some like islands in Hawaii outlawed it, but okay, cool. No other questions there right now. If you guys have other questions, feel free to reach out to me and I would love to connect with you all. But thank you so much for joining me today, taking some time out of your day or your lunch break or whatever it is. Oh, congrats on the baby. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and look forward to connecting with some of you guys soon.